Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to our webinar on the psychology of obesity and weight loss. Now, it is not unusual when we talk about obesity or weight loss to talk about diet and exercise. But of late, the psychology of obesity is becoming the most looked forward to and the most popular subject on weight loss because the mind controls the body. Okay, with that said, I am absolutely delighted to have with us an outstanding would-be common. We frequently have outstanding speakers, but in this instance, unique. We have a unique faculty, and you'll understand why I say unique when I mention some of Dr. Vasuprada's work, not only in relation to obesity, but also in relation to the several other things that Dr. Vasuprada does. Now, look at it from an academic perspective. Dr. Vasuprada is a double master's, not only in counseling, but also in psychotherapy. And to cap it all, she has a PhD in holistic psychotherapy. Now that is interesting, the word holistic. Now we'll come back to that in due course. Even more exciting is the next word, and if I stumble on it, forgive me, it's not frequently used. It's not a frequently used word, but certainly very valuable, anthroposophic. I wonder, Dr. Vasuprada will correct me if I'm wrong. Anthroposophic. She is an anthroposophic psychotherapist from Switzerland. And I went out of my way to try and understand what that word meant. Anthroposophic. And I came across some exciting thoughts about that. But we'll come to that in due course. I am going to be spending a little time with Dr. Vasuprada towards the end of the program, clearing my doubts, asking questions, trying to understand more about her holistic anthroposophic background. Now, she has worked with government and non-government organizations in several locations, but of specific reference to us is the Telangana Police, and an absolute delight is that she has worked with the SHE teams, and that was recently formed, as I recall, not more than 5 or 10 years back. She is a consultant psychologist and even worked with, I wouldn't really say work because Dr. Vasuprada doesn't work. She loves what she does, and that can barely be called work. So, as a consultant psychologist with LivLife and is a faculty with the prestigious ASCI, Dr. Vasuprada probably spends more time in the creation of TV programs as a presenter than she probably does watching TV. I notice over here a TV presence in conflict resolution, amongst other aspects. And that takes us to the broader aspect of Dr. Vasuprada's work. Rotary, safe, happy families, and many other things. I recall reading in her, I can't say brief because it certainly wasn't brief. There were so many achievements over there. But I recall reading in her resume, in her profile, that she was awarded in the Rotary for some of the practical work that she did. Published several papers nationally and internationally, and only most recently a chapter published by the University of, hold your breath, Toronto, and that is in Canada. Well, okay, but that's not all, because she has been part of the United Nations in several aspects, but the conference in South America, where participants from Brazil, Chile, Argentina all participated. And Dr. Vasuprada, today we from humble Telangana and India are going to be our audience. Dr. Vasuprada.
Thank you, Professor Kennedy. That's very, very kind of you. I'm very happy to be here. This is what I love to do, talk about what matters to people. So I'm just doing a few slides, which will probably just talk about the usual things that we can comprehend. And then I would be very happy to have more deeper conversation with Professor Kennedy, because that's where I think the nuances of what is coming would show itself up. So I'll just share my screen now. So I have been associated with LivLife way back, I think 2012 onwards. And after that, though I'm not actively with hospitals, I have many referrals and they continue to come to me. So my work with bariatric psychology still happens, and my focus on psychosomatics and trauma somehow it all seems to be enmeshed in this work. So let me just start the share. Yeah. So I'll just start with this. We'll just have a few slides. So bariatric psychology means essentially that what goes on in the human mind in terms of the causes of obesity, because now the instance of obesity is so high that we need to now start talking about it. Because earlier, I guess it was not a problem for all of us, but now we seem to have this. Oh, I'm just sorry. So the global statistics are clear. 1 in 8 people, which is a lot, that is there. And of course, it has increased twice as much since 1990. And over 1 billion individuals worldwide are now living with obesity. So 1 billion is a huge number. And we really have to, that's the reason I suppose all these health challenges and the work that is being done by pediatric surgeons and all those who are helping people deal with obesity and the problems that are coming along with it. So the typical thing that we look at is essentially, of course, the most often that is seen is emotional eating, stress, loneliness, low mood, trigger eating, and the absence of real hunger. I think this is an important point for us because stress is now prevalent. Stress is there everywhere. And loneliness also happens to be somehow strangely more present than ever before. It was never an issue, but now it seems to be that people tend to feel lonely despite being in a crowd. And that's the reason we need to analyze more why it is happening. And of course, low mood trigger eating, most of us know that when we feel low, it's very easy to reach out to a bar of chocolate and such things. Then trauma linked behaviors is something which is important. So childhood adversity and unresolved traumas. So this is something we can associate with lifelong eating patterns, how they affect them. Most of the children who have been through some traumas start showing these dependent eating behaviors. that eating becomes a very important part for them. It's nothing to do with the hunger. It's more to do with how they feel comforted. So either in a way, it's also like an escape. So from whatever is the situation at that time. So abuse, children who have seen abuse of different natures also tend to have this, or high expectation kind of an environment also triggers wrong eating behaviors. So with children, this is what, so we call them as adverse childhood experiences. So those also seem to affect the eating choices and the eating behavior as adults. Then the next one is usually when we talk about emotional regulation, it's just that an adult is supposed to especially understand that supposing I'm angry, how am I supposed to handle my anger? How am I supposed to control this feeling of sudden low or sudden high? So regulation of my own emotions is somehow expected out of each adult. We learn over a period of time. But essentially, what's happening most of the time now is that eating has become a form of a regulation. So when I'm angry, I eat. When I'm sad, I eat. When I'm feeling low, I eat. So it's more like how food has become a mode of regulation. So what the term usually is self-regulation. So on my own, I will have the ability to regulate my emotions. But instead of that, we end up having eating as something that helps me regulate. So obviously, something is getting replaced by eating behaviors. Now, this is something which I think is very important for us. Social reasons, though we really do not give it much thought, everybody says, losing weight is all about willpower, you need to really focus on it. But actually, these are the things that are existing. It's not like they don't exist. So it's also more about the family habits. And one of them is how the portions are served. And typically, we know that parents start giving children huge amounts of food. They expect it to be filled with little, the concept of, ghee, lot of ghee in children's food. So all these more fats, sometimes sweets, all these things become the family habits. Around childhood, the child is exposed to those. And also the meal timing. So one of the other things that happens is when the child is or is saying food, the word is expressed, or I'm hungry, most of the time adults do not actually give it a thought whether the child could be really hungry or not. So these habits that are coming, and also possibly the adults in the family are also eating at odd times and eating the wrong food, so the child learns the same. Now the next one is of course celebration and affection. Now this is very big time in a country like India or many other countries which have these um, huge habits of celebrations. Celebrations are big, and every celebration includes, or rather starts with, food, and food that is also very rich. So celebration and affection. Now affection is another thing. So when we are visiting someone, like you're calling on your friends or relatives, we always carry something with us, and invariably it'll be sweets, chocolates, something of these days, unfortunately, also when we call on friends, people are carrying alcohol. So I'll come to that later. So it does happen. So we're carrying things which are probably not really the right ones to do. But of course, we love our friends, we love our family, we love, so we are showing our affection through this. We don't mean any harm at all. And but it does affect what happens to a person through all these things. Next, of course, is the loneliness and isolation. Unfortunately, because of work reasons, because of social reasons, there is always this sense of being alone and feeling lonely in relationships. This is one of the main reasons. Actually, relationship issues probably have skyrocketed. There's so many things that keep coming to us at our work. So we know that even though somebody is in a relationship, they feel alone. At work, they could be feeling alone. Socially, they could be feeling alone. So multiple things. And of course, the comfort is the food I choose. So this is also another thing where you're not motivated to cook food. Then that's a very important thing. And it happens to too many people that unless there is someone else to enjoy the food with, or you don't feel that it's working that way, you don't have the motivation to cook food. So probably it ends up that, we make wrong choices of food. Now, this is something I know a lot of people will say, oh God, what is this? The truth is, processed foods are way more cheaper. And ultra processed foods are more affordable. And this is something across the world, if you see, that the food that can be probably bought with $5 to $7 is filled with things that can make you very easily obese, as against something that is going to be more health giving is going to cost you probably double of that or more. So the choice becomes that we choose things which are also very easy to source. Work stress, long hours. Now we all know about the shifts, how the MNCs are bringing all these, or everywhere. I mean, people, another thing is it's fashionable to work at wrong hours. Everybody says, I stay up in the night and work. Really, if you ask a question, is it necessary? I don't think so. But they do it because it's fashionable. And when you're awake till 2 o'clock, you're bound to eat wrong food. And of course, sedentary urban life, nobody gets a chance to get up and work. It's not like we walk to fields. It's not like we are doing daily hard labor. We are busy with our gadgets. And I'm guilty of it too. I'm sitting here talking, and this is my work. I'm sitting comfortably on a chair and I'm talking to you here. So this is another reason that we end up obviously getting fatter. Now, this is another thing. Many cultures, it's also considered very impolite if you refuse food. If somebody is offering something, you cannot say no, they take offense. And also the portions that have been given to you as a child, the conditions that have been, given to you as a child, saying, what is served on food, you better, on the plate, you better eat it. So in a way, we are conditioned to first accept food and also not to say no. And also culturally, it's a very sensitive issue in many cultures. So it's all about now, how do we play the host where we are not actually troubling our guests? That becomes another issue. Of course, rich foods now in India, there is no dearth of festivals. I think we have festivals probably every month or maybe every fortnight. So we are bound to the cultures which have more festivals and festivities are bound to have this problem. Body image and shame is a thing that I would like to talk about more, where if I'm not looking the way that there is an expectation socially, I try hard. I try hard, and probably because I don't achieve the image that I'm expecting others to see of me, I go towards wrong food again to get my own comfort. So if I'm standing on the weighing scale and I see that I haven't lost weight or I haven't lost some inches, then again, suddenly it's like I just feel dejected and start eating the wrong thing. So it's a very strange cycle that sets in wherein I tend to work hard, but at the same time, I self-sabotage my own efforts. So this cycle of body image and shame is a huge thing in terms of overeating and obesity. Now, this is a very important thing. I think all of us will accept this, that when there is a visual stimulus, I swear, it's impossible. When you see melting cheese flowing through pizzas, my God, I just want to eat it then. That's what happens because it's like it's stimulating something in our brain, something that is so exciting to see. So this happens all the time. And of course, the plates, the packaging, we have huge plates. As a habit, we carry big plates and we would want to fill them. Then this screen eating is probably one of the worst habits, which is starting with even children, because now we have obesity with children. And the reason being that they have learned how to scroll on phones and not just televisions, mind you. And the mother is trying to feed these children when the child is occupied on the phone. So essentially, it because their eating habits are bad. So we're telling, we're just starting to think about what is causing obesity, what is making a person not aware of what is being eaten. And this, I think, is a very important thing. Instant gratification has become the norm of the day. It's like we want things now. I don't have the patience to wait. And dopamine is something, it is all about pleasure seeking. So I want it now, and then when I get it, I feel happy. So it's all about as and when things happen. So when instant food started coming, not to talk about specific brands, but I think our idea about food or eating or even about life has changed. So we do not want to wait even for anything in life. Forget about food. And this is causing more distress than ever before in terms of human mind and human life itself. So this is where we are having this cycle of I stress, I eat. After I eat, I feel a relief. Then after a little while, I start feeling guilty. So these, of course, lead to some disorders, which we could talk about later, perhaps, because what are the disorders that could happen through these kind of behavior patterns? Now, of course, what do we usually do is that, so cognitive behavior therapy, when you start getting aware of your own habit cycle, what you are doing, what is triggering. So this awareness of your own thought, your own behavior. So when we say cognition, it's essentially about being aware of your own thought process. And then behavior is, am I acting on it? What's happening with my behavior? Being conscious of it and working on it. So it's one part of it. Then the next one is mindful eating. Now, this is something which has become an extremely rare commodity. Nobody pays any attention to what they are eating. More often than not, people are not paying attention to what they're eating. So it's like I'm eating, but actually I'm not aware of the taste, the texture, the temperature of what I'm eating. And the next part is also, what's my feedback system? Do I have a feedback system that is telling me that my stomach is full or I'm not hungry? So this satiety center is also losing its own sensitivity, because if we are overloading it all the time, I'm no more sensitive to my own signals of the body. So this feedback system is affected, and that's where mindful eating is a beautiful approach that helps people to become mindful of every single thing that is happening in the process of eating. Of course, trauma informed therapies usually recognizes the patterns as to why we even started the patterns that we did. What is my trigger? What has made me become this person who's making these choices? Though probably somewhere deep inside I may know it's wrong, but I still do it. So usually those are the things that help when you're trying to understand probably some amount of traumas existing around eating behaviors or any other situation that would have caused traumas. And of course, habit modifications and distress tolerance. So now this is another thing that is bothering all of us, that we do not have the capability to tolerate anything which is distressful. So something that bothers me, I cannot handle it for more than few minutes. I want a solution. So, how often do we hear as mental health professionals that people say, "Do you know, I really can't wait. I want to work with this as quick as possible." Really, that is probably the root cause for many things that we are talking about today. That we want a quick resolution, we want a quick solution. So I want to feel comforted in the next 30 seconds. So it's all about how quick. So Just like instant foods, we want instant solutions and instant everything. And honestly, that is probably the reason obesity happens. And to work with obesity, that is completely the wrong approach. So finally, this is something I just want to say that, obesity is a condition shaped by mind, family, money, and meaning. And so its treatment must be too. So this, of course, is something where a lot of questions can come as to what do you mean by money? What is the meaning behind it? What is the mind doing? And how is family contributing or not contributing? So I think this where it is. So I'd like to just stop the share now because this just a brief outline that could probably, I hope it created some picture and we could go ahead from this now.
Interesting. Very, very interesting, Dr. Suprada. Very, very interesting. Now, I'm going to start right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Right at the beginning. Now, when you spoke about emotional eating in the absence of hunger,
Yes.
isn't that a contradiction? I am not hungry, but I am eating. What is the connection?
So hunger is something which is very physiological. Okay, so the brain actually gets a signal that you need some food, and that is what is a physiological signal, that is hunger. It says my stomach is empty and I need some food. That's the feedback that the brain is getting, which is actually essentially the a feedback loop that works in terms of how I feel the hunger. Then I also feel that I have eaten enough and I can stop it. Now, when emotions enter this particular space, it's strange how it can completely disrupt this. So I just eat because it's like I'm feeling lonely. I'll just give an example. It's like someone went through a breakup, okay, and you're sitting in a room, and I'm just feeling bad. So as is the case, there could be chocolates, there could be wine, there could be all these rich foods around. And typically we call them the comfort foods. So anything that makes you feel, and of course, chocolate does have an impact on the brain. It does give you a sense of comfort. So it begins that it's not just about adults, but how these behaviors also start in childhood, because chocolate eating, unfortunately, is the most common amongst children. So when they say, I want chocolate, do you think the child is hungry? Absolutely. There is no hunger there. It's just that I just like at that moment, I feel that excitement. So I want to eat it. So it's like either you see the thought of chocolate is exciting you rather than actually my hunger is one way. The next is I want to deal with some emotions that I have. So many people say when they're angry, they continuously are munching on things. It's very shocking. It's nothing to do with hunger. So probably the moment, especially they say I snack on hard snacks because the crunch probably helps them feel that they're doing something very strong against their anger. So these feedbacks really help us see that how emotions are directly connected to eating, which has nothing to do with their sense of hunger. I could be completely, even though I think the simplest thing is, I've had a full meal, but somebody brings an interesting sweet and says, beta thoda kha le. And it's like suddenly somebody is offering, auntie is offering, somebody's, first of all, I don't say no, then I say, no, no, it's very interesting. So I eat. Is it hunger? No. Probably I'm happy. Muh meetha karo. Like things like, we talking about how our traditions, customs is one part, but also inability to work with your own emotions. So emotions are the essential triggers rather than the hunger trigger that is driving us to the food.
Yes, yes, absolutely. That's very interesting because I seem to be able to connect it with the dopamine override. Now, you're talking emotion,
Yeah.
you are not hungry, but the example that you gave, you have an emotional problem, perhaps a breakup or something. Now, how do you feel happy? You
Yeah.
spoke about the dopamine override. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So dopamine override is like, for instance, it's about pleasure and excitement. So what also happens is something like how we associate certain things with a certain emotion. So it's like, for instance, why do we associate good memories with eating? Actually, we forget that we have met people and it's created a good memory. But instead of that, we also tend to associate the food existing at that time. So in a very strange way, what happens is I relive this association. So maybe I'm missing my mother. Let us say I'm some faraway place. Then for me, at that time, I want to eat the sweet my mom made. It doesn't matter about anything else because I want to have that sense of pleasure. I want to feel comforted. So it's not, I could be a diabetic or I could be obese, but at that moment, it's like, I want to feel my mother's cooking. I want to eat that. And then the moment you have it, you say, ah, wow, it's so nice. And that's dopamine for you.
Well, Dr. Vasuprada, you remind me very much. I mean, what you say reminds me very much of my own situation because I certainly love the food my mother made. And my mother is in a happy place up there somewhere, but I, I recall my wife telling me, she says, you only seem to enjoy the food that your mother made. Why don't you enjoy the food that I make? And I said, well, I really don't know, but I just love the food that my mother made. I mean,
Yeah.
it's lovely that you drew that connection. At least I'll now be able to tell my wife that Dr. Vasuprada says that it is inevitable.
No, I'm just saying that dopamine has that effect where it can override many things, but our training would be that we actually work towards more of serotonin levels. So it's all about the stable sense of contentment rather than the excited happiness, because dopamine is about excitement and that sense of sudden happiness, the highs, the adventure, all these. But serotonin is about just being content, somehow more stable. So we're managing this harmony within ourselves. And dopamine is all about the rush, the excitement. So it's, in a way, if we have to talk about it, it's more about how the amygdala works. It's like it pushes you, it's more instinct based. Whereas contentment is where you are bringing some logic and say, okay, I can balance this out. Like, for instance, how people say, I can eat a sweet, but probably I will have 1 spoon of it. And that's contentment. So, how you learn to balance and how you say, I can manage my portions because you're happy with the 1 spoon or the 2 spoons, and you say, ah, I feel good. Whereas the dependence part is more the dopamine. So it's all about how the logic works as against these instincts that drive us towards pleasure seeking. And pleasure eating is a huge pleasure. It's a basic pleasure. That's where we come.
Yeah, absolutely. Eating, I recall at the at the dining table, I recall saying that eating is one of the basic pleasures. So why are we so averse to it? If it is a basic pleasure, what goes wrong?
Yeah. It's about what I just said. See, it's about how do we manage this concept of pleasure? So pleasure can be something that can override everything and you can get dependent on your eating, or we have a very balanced, harmonious relationship with it where we are content with the way we are eating our food. Like, for instance, people have this very nice habit of saying, okay, 5, 6 days I eat well. One day I will do this cheat day. I'll eat what I want. So I'm talking about how some amount of you make an agreement with yourself. You make a deal with yourself, not with anyone else. So we make a deal with ourselves and say, okay, I'm happy doing this. So then what happens is you maintain yourself. You become the long haul flight, not this bursty short one. So this whole process of obesity, maintaining your body as against getting into the binge eating part. So now the binge eating is dopamine again, because it's like at that time, yeah.
Yeah, I I agree with you. I mean, manage pleasure is what you said. You
Yes,
manage pleasure by making a deal with yourself to say that I will behave myself 5 or 6 days a week, and on the seventh day, I will eat the things I like. Yes, I believe that is a good idea. But you know, an area in which we seem to be completely, I don't think we can win this one, and that is advertising. You in what? Yeah, visual psychology. I think that's how
yeah,
you refer to it, visual psychology. And you
yes,
spoke about advertising, and you mentioned, I recall even now, uh, the cheese flowing.
yeah,
And I recall when you were saying that, I remember the hamburger I ate the other day. Well, exactly that cheese flowing. Now, if you have a whole $1 billion industry that is augmenting the food that you eat, and
yeah,
that brings us to the next point, the economy. Now,
yes,
here is an industry that advertises food
yeah.
on the one hand, and on the other hand, it makes it cheaper than the food you're eating at home. How do you beat this combination?
Yeah, that's where I think a lot of self-awareness and also in a very strange way we have to go back to educational psychology in terms of when children are learning, we usually create this one system where we say buddy system. A child who's doing well, essentially you pair them with a child who's struggling a bit, and the buddies help each other. So, in a way, I think it's very important that we always have someone who's able to manage through these conditions that are given to us, are thrown at us, and the one who's struggling to manage through this. So, having these helping hands or the friends or the peer group who are more consciously able to manage, probably for various reasons that they are in a better place to manage the dopamine hits or resisting those. Um, the ones who are struggling need to actually have a helping hand with that. And it could be family, it could be friends. And usually, where I feel we are really missing the bus, honestly, is that every socializing has become around food. People don't meet just like that anymore. They, when they get together, they're just eating a lot of food. And I'm talking about even whether, so who's going to break this habit? So somebody out of the whole group, there could be one person who's slightly more aware, and it's very important that we allow this one person to lead the group, and they make this choices. Like, for instance, overall they'll make better choices even though they are meeting in a restaurant for lunch, for dinner, for a coffee. It's become fashionable that even if you're meeting over a tea or a coffee, you have so much of rich food around it. Does really coffee need so much? Is the question. But it's become a habit because they're there in the environment. So that's another part. It's existing in front of your eyes. When you walk into a bistro, it's like the smells are literally invading your senses. So you're overwhelmed, you're overtaken by those. So people make the choices. So even though I may go with a very interesting intention of just having one cup of fairly decent, good coffee, no cream, nothing, but I could make 10 orders and eat up the whole thing and come out. So this is where I think the socializing part has to change a little bit, or people have to make these deals with each other, saying that even though we like the environment of a certain place, let us not just eat so much. Let's have a controlled amount of ordering. So this whole thing of who becomes the master there, it's like who makes the choice. Is the environment making the choice for you, or are you able to make a choice? So this battle is where we need to win it.
I like what you said. I like what you said about the buddy system. Now, I know about the buddy system, and you always, broadly speaking, an area of your learning is also addiction and alcohol and things like that. But I do know that the buddy system helps many of our young girls when they are out at a bar or something. They make sure that they have a buddy with them who looks after them. But I never dreamt that you would use this concept when it came to eating, and that's well done. But I can tell you this also. Now, a buddy system is to have a friend who is your friend and who tells you and whose advice you are willing to accept, who tells you, listen, you've eaten too much, okay? Or this is not the right food to eat. But it frequently happens that there are people, a mother to a child, and when the mother says, well, the mother never says don't eat. So I'll take that example out.
Yes.
Allow me, without prejudice to my absolutely delightful wife, when she tells me, don't eat so much, I mean, I feel even more hungry. So it's a strange contradiction. I like what you say. If a friend tells me, look, Ducky, just don't eat so much, I can understand it. But why is it that figures of authority tend to dislike that or disregard that?
That's precisely why I said buddy. Buddy is someone, in a way, we are accepting them as someone who's non-intrusive, who's non-authoritative, all these things. So we don't attach very many negative things to this buddy. When strangely, even in the closest of relationships, otherwise, these things tend to come in. So this sense of control or authority somehow creep in. I don't know how it creeps in, but it does. So instead of that, it could be just a well-meaning friend, well-meaning colleague who says, chalo, let's go out, but let us just, choose a place that serves probably low-calorie food, or we try to keep our orders. So let's have fun. So, being aware doesn't mean we stop having fun. Now, that's a very important thing. So the moment we talk about our diet, people completely go crazy because in their minds, oh my God, I will be forced to stop all my fun. So this association of uh, food, wrong food, huge rich food with celebrations, with happiness, with good times. So the good times, as you rightly mentioned, it's not just about the eating part. It's essentially these days about eating and drinking. So obesity doesn't have just happen just with eating. We also have many other components, unfortunately, that have found their way into our everyday life. And the cyclic manner in which people are living, it's like, okay, 5 days I want to work very hard, and 2 days I want to just eat away to glory and drink away to glory. I mean, anything could happen. And unfortunately, the belief is that is the only way to have fun. And that is the sad part. So when we disconnect these two, that you can have fun even with good food, you can have fun with your family without having to drown in ghee or something, you know. So this is the associated things that we have very culturally, socio-culturally. Um, they become kind of part of your being. So to break through that, we need a lot of help. It's not.
I'm going to talk about one or two. Uh, you know, you mentioned that when you go out, you have a cup of coffee, and then you add to that a couple of biscuits, and then you add to that a sandwich, and things like that. Last evening, I was out with a group of friends, and there was this gentleman in particular who had lost a remarkable 23 kgs over a period of about 6 to 12 months. And I asked him, I said, "Whoa, how did you manage that?" And he said, "It's very simple. I realized that throughout the day, I was eating things that I didn't need to eat. I had my meals, but I would always have a coffee with some cookies, and I would always have tea with sandwiches, and I would always have my drink with chanachur and
Yeah.
things like that." He said, "All I did was I decided not to eat except when I was at my dining table." And he lost 23 kgs over a period of time. So I absolutely, I can understand. I mean, in practical terms, that's exactly what you said. Another,
Yeah.
my granddaughter, oh, beautiful, lovely child. I mean, just all of 8 years old. And she always wants to eat with her little mobile phone, and she's eating and scrolling. And her mother tells her, "Sophie, you cannot bring your phone to the table." But she is very disappointed. Why is that happening?
Yeah. So essentially, it would happen primarily because there are two things going on at that time. One is the dependence on the screen is the first one. And also, it's possible that many children, as I think I said this before, but I'm saying it again, it's just that when they are little fussy eaters, nowadays what's happening is a phone is becoming a kind of go-to gadget for mothers to keep the child engaged while they feed them. So in a way, the job of feeding them is done, but the child is also exposed. So I'm not talking about your grandchild. I'm talking about generally why this is happening, because we see this a lot. And children are developing the habit of eating a lot of food for no reason, because it's also like they're just going on eating. So essentially, at that point in time, we are conditioning them to eat without being aware of what they are eating. So this becomes a habit. It goes off into adolescence. By the time they're adolescents, they are already eating way more than they should, because I'm not mindful enough, or I'm not aware enough when my stomach says, "My God, I'm full. Come on, don't give me any more food." But actually, I'm not listening to the signals, because my brain is engaged elsewhere. My senses are with the screen. I'm watching something there. All the processes are involved in that. I'm trying to understand what's going on the screen. But actually, I'm not at all paying any attention to what my body is telling me. So this happens typically when you walk into a movie theater. Okay, you're watching a movie. Now this is where I'm shocked when I see these behaviors. The popcorn comes in this bigger thing, and this is another shocking thing. The pricing between the smaller one and the big one is so little that people make the choice automatically to take the big one. And a person is eating this big, the large popcorn, with what all mixes, I'm not very sure. And it's like when you walk into the movie, you pick up one. During the interval, the break time, you walk out and pick up one more. So essentially, two huge bowls of popcorn you're downing, along with all the sugared other stuff, all in a matter of 2.5 hours. And this is something I'm very sure most of them are not even hungry. It's all the excitement of the movie. It's the environment. So the excitement that's coming, or probably the expectation, it's like, come on, let's go to a movie. Wow, what a popcorn. What kind of popcorn I get there. So it's all about how we ourselves are making things into something bigger than what they are. So because I remember, I think when we were growing up, if we had this bigger, one small popcorn, one small packet used to be there. Even if we wanted, I think hardly anything was available. So in a way, some little bit of natural control was there, but now it's like everything is exciting. And the sights and smells of all these things when you walk in. So children are also exposed to the same. They are also sitting in front of a TV, a television screen. They're watching cartoons and they're going on eating. So if one snack is over, they pick up one more. So there is this, there's a chips packet, there's one more packet, all the crunchy. So I was telling you about this. The crunch is very exciting. So whether it could be, so it's all about senses, human senses. So in our work, the anthroposophic work, typically we know we talk about the usual five senses, but Rudolf Steiner, father of anthroposophy, gives us 12 senses. And it's very interesting how each one matters and how this feedback system happens. So these the development of each behavior pattern. So especially when we are talking about addictions, it makes a lot of sense to really understand it from this sensory perspective.
Dr. Vasuprada, you just mentioned anthroposophy, and it caught my attention. And this is going to be my. I noticed we are running out of time, so this is going to be my final question. But I'm glad that you triggered it. Now, when I read up, and by the way, yesterday I was out in the evening with a student of yours.
Oh,
Yes, I
oh,
met Anita was her name,
oh,
and
wow.
I
Okay.
know her as Ashu, and that
Uh-huh.
was Anita. And uh, I said, Ashu, tomorrow we have a webinar, and Dr. Vasuprada is going to be delivering the lecture. And she said, "Oh, wow, that is fabulous. She is so knowledgeable." And she's absolutely correct. You are. But when I read, when I was, when I knew that you were coming on to the webinar and I saw the word anthroposophy, I read up about it, and I have to tell you that the word soul appeared often in that explanation. It,
Yeah.
it appeared ever so often. I know it is not connected to obesity, but forgive me taking advantage of me sitting right here in front of you. Tell us a little about that. The soul, anthroposophy. I mean, it's at my age, the soul is a very interesting subject.
So, yeah. So, in a very strange way, the soul is pretty connected to obesity because anthroposophic understanding is the human soul is the storehouse of human experiences. And this is coming with through all the senses. The primary inputs are always through the senses. And as I said, it's not just five, we have 12 senses. So we have a huge load of things going into it. And when we talk about the study of psychology, essentially, I'm still studying about the soul contents. So it's about what matters to me, uh, what feeling realm, what's my feeling realm holding in its space. And that's the soul for you in that sense. So not the typical way that one would understand. So, and the other part is the spirit, when we say, is more about the human self-aware part, where I know that it's me. the concept of the self or the awareness that I am me is the human spirit. So it's interesting how these things matter when we start seeing how the human soul is capable of these huge emotions. It's all about the feeling realm. It gathers all the experiences and everything. But who can sit there and say, I will maintain some balance? Because my feeling real world could take me into a whole spectrum of sympathies and antipathies. I could hate this, I could love this, which happens all the time. So the whole world of dopamine or the lack of it. So it's all about that space, which is all about the excitement, the joys, the sorrows, and all that is one part. But where do I maintain my sense of equanimity? Where do I sense, how do I get the sense of balance? So this is all about how the human self-awareness is a key to working with this. So that's what it is.
Doc Vasuprada, I have to thank you for explaining to us the several aspects, the psychological reasons, the social reasons, the economic reasons, the cultural reasons, and giving us the therapeutic solutions. I have to thank you very much for this. This video is going to be seen by thousands and thousands of individuals, and it will give them a completely new insight into your concept. Thank you ever so much, Dr. Vasu. One of the fortunate things in getting you to speak to us is that I got your mobile number. So I am going to be calling you with your permission and talking to you about many, many things. I'll take the liberty of doing that. Okay.
Yes. Thank you for having me here. And I do hope that, people know that it's not a simple process. It needs work, but at the same time, it is something that will work. So that is something they should know, that when we work with some amount of self-awareness, and the smart people in the world, which I keep saying often, the smart ones are the ones who reach out for help. So asking that you need help or looking around for your buddies, it could be professionals, it could be anybody, but that is your buddy. So these buddies are important.
And another interesting, I know we can carry on forever, and the watch tells me to stop, and I will, I promise you. But another interesting aspect is the nomenclature or the heading of your webinar today was bariatric surgery, if I recall that, or somewhere you mentioned it, I've written it down somewhere, bariatric psychology. I recall that you mentioned that, and that's remarkable because there was a gentleman who underwent a cardiac bypass surgery perhaps a week back, and his doctor, amongst other things, during his rehabilitation, suggested or informed a psychologist to be in touch with him. And I wondered, why a psychologist? And now I can understand, because there is so much in the mind that we just don't comprehend. Dr. Vasuprada, I can carry on forever saying thank you, but let me just say it simply. Thank you, and thank you.
Thank you for having me, and all the very best for your endeavors. And yes, I'm here. As you know, I'm always available for anything that helps. So,
okay. Thank you, Dr. Vasuprada. And to the rest of all of us over here, have a great day. We'll see you sometime next week. Okay. Bye-bye, Dr. Vasuprada. God bless you, and thank you so much. Bye-bye.